On the other side of the border, there are the people returning to Syria after years of exile. Like Basma, who was a refugee in Beirut with her daughter and her granddaughter just a few months old. She's a businesswoman who runs 2 dental practices.
يعني ماني قدرانة صدقه إنه أنا بعد 14 سنة قادرة إنه أتخطى هاي الحدود. أنا أول مرة من 14 سنة في عالم كتير إجت. أصلاً ما فيني أنزل، حتى لو فيني أنزل ما كنت بدي أنزل إلا ليروح بشار الأسد.
As of December 2024, 6 million Syrians have fled their country since 2011 and the start of the civil war. Like Basma, a student in Damascus. She took part in a demonstration against the dictatorship. She risked imprisonment for doing so she chose to flee. For her, this return is a historic day. All along the road, there are remnants of the rout of the regime.
When I was here.
فرحنا مثل ما كان هو سبب إنه نحن نزعل. إحنا كنا سبب فرح كل الدنيا هلأ. أكيد الدنيا مو واسعتني. أكيد ريحة الحرية أحلى من أحلى شيء بالعالم، أحلى من أطيب من الخبز، وأحلى من أي شيء بالدنيا. فيعني نحن أحرار. أول مرة نحن أحرار. الحمد لله الله يتمم علينا يا رب.
2 hours later, Damascus, and the first memories come flooding back.
فوق في السفارات اللي عملت فيها الأبحاث اللي كنت أعملها وقت اللي كنت بسنة أولى بالجامعة. فيعني هي الشام شامنا، لك هي شامنا إلنا. كيف بياخدها؟ كيف بيحرمنا منها؟ كيف بيحرمنا منها؟ يا الله، الله أكبر، الحمد لله يا رب، الحمد لله الحمد لله.
On this day, she finds the capital rejoicing. And she's going back to the neighborhood of her childhood, where she grew up, where she'll find her younger sister, her nieces and her cousin, who've planned everything to welcome her. A PA system in the street and party music. It's 14 years since they last saw each other. She's able to return home thanks to the arrival in power of fighters from the Islamist group HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. They are led by a young commander, Abu Mohammed al-Jolani. He's 42 years old and a former jihadist, labelled a terrorist by the West. He now embodies both the fears and the hopes of an entire people. For the past week, since the 8th of December 2024, Damascus has been celebrating. The statues of the Assads, father and son, have been knocked down and destroyed. The debris of 50 years of dictatorship lies on the ground.
الله أكبر والعزة لله. تم إسقاط النظام وفرع أمن الدولة والجوية والحمد لله انتصرنا على الطاغي بشار وعوانه والإيراني والروسي.
The most powerful in the region have fled, with President Bashar al-Assad and his family the first to go. Their residence and the presidential palace, a hitherto inaccessible fortress, were abandoned to the Syrian people, who have taken back control over their destiny. The palace has been emptied, every nook and cranny searched, and one wing ravaged by fire. Here and throughout the country, portraits of the dictator and his father are being trampled underfoot or burned. It all began 12 days prior. For over a decade, the power of Damascus has been undermined in the northeast by Kurdish forces and in the west by Islamist factions. It was in the west, in the Idlib region, that the offensive was launched. It was a lightning strike by al-Jolani and his men. On the 27th of November 2024, his jihadist rebel group, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, formerly a branch of Al-Qaeda, announced the start of its offensive. The first objective was to take Aleppo, the country's second city. The fighting was fierce. 200 people were killed in 48 hours. After 3 days, the city fell to the rebels. The jihadis then took the road south, and the towns began to collapse one by one.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أبشركم إخواني أن إخوانكم المجاهدون الثوار قد بدأوا بالدخول إلى مدينة حماة.
Next stop, Homs, 160 kilometers from the capital. On the way, the Islamist rebels took hundreds of supporters of the Assad dynasty prisoner and forced them to sing for the cameras. Finally, on the 8th of December 2024, the HTS rebels converged on Damascus and seized strategic positions. Bashar al-Assad's regime was officially overthrown. People's first instinct was to go north of Damascus to Syydnaya Prison, nicknamed the human slaughterhouse. Tens of thousands of political prisoners were held, tortured and killed there. It's the site of the worst atrocities committed by the Assads in Syria. We arrived there 48 hours after the fall of the regime. The Red Cross is on the scene. So are NGOs, including these Turkish aid workers who have been sent to try and uncover all the secrets. Hidden jails, secret cells, kilometers of underground galleries.
نحن هذا البناء الأساسي اللي نحن هلا فوقه حاليا. تمام. في عندنا بناء هذا تحت الأرض.
See, there is a tunnel under the ground.
هذا البناء عم يقول عمقه لازم يكون ثلاث طوابق.
Bayazid has been coordinating the search since yesterday, and like everyone else, he's discovering the immensity of the place. More than 20,000 inmates were locked up in this prison, subjected to severe abuses. Those who first arrived on the scene discovered the command center of the prison complex. Nearly 200 surveillance cameras suggest the existence of secret corridors and hidden cells, but they can't find the way in. So they are digging, hoping to find survivors still trapped in underground dungeons.
وراح يحفر الشباب ما يقارب متر ونص نشوف شو الله بيسر.
بس شوي بعد اذنك شوي.
مستحيل يكون عايش. هلا في 3 طوابق تحت هذه الطوابق فنحن يعني هلا في 3 تحت 3 لازم. هلا نحن هاول الحكي يعني هاول مقاطع الصوت اللي عم يتداولوها من كانوا يخدموا هون سابقا فنحن مثل ما عم نقطع الشك باليقين ان شاء الله. تماما شكرا الله يكفيكم.
In the hours following the arrival of the HTS fighters, the jails were opened, thanks to them. Thousands of prisoners were released, an unthinkable result for these men who had expected to die behind bars. Syednaya. It was a name that made a whole country shudder until Sunday, the 8th of December 2024. Today, hundreds of families around the prison are still looking for missing relatives and have no news of them. Bayazid and his teams have to deal with anger and incomprehension.
يا حجي نحن عمال انسانيين نحن عمال انسانيين جينا امبارح فريق من تركيا دخلنا من تركيا لهم
كان قبل بيوم حافرين حفره كبيره عم اقول له ليش حافرين هيك؟ قال والله هم اللي حفروا ما نعرف حفروا اجوا البرادات بشيلوهم باكياس كحليه بشيلوا بيزتوا بشيلوا بيزتوا 4 ساعات وانا محبوسه بالغرفه الريحه قتلتني قتل بعد ما راحوا اجت البندوزر هدت التراب عليهم هيك بتروح وتجي البندوزر مهدت الطريق اجيت بعد ما طلعت قال لي الله يعطيك العافيه ساعتك وين كنت؟ كنت قاعده قبل ما يسقط راس الكلب باسبوع انا رحت زرت كمان اخوي عليه حراس
هلا نحن ما بدنا ننتهي نحن راح نخبر الدفاع المدني بهذا الامر ولكن نحن مسؤوليتنا الان الميتين الله يرحمهم ولكن
How many Syrians have died in Syydnaya? NGOs estimate that at least 30,000 people have been executed since 2011. There are no official figures. It's the Assad dynasty's best-kept secret.